You're very welcome back to stage 13 of the Giro d'Italia. They're on the one and only classified climb of this stage, the longest stage of the race, 254 kilometres from Busseto to Cherasco, and they're now within 42 kilometres of the finish, so over 200 kilometres in their legs as they hit this climb. And we've 7 riders out front. 3 riders have gone on from that group, led by Nicola Bohem. Lars Bach and Pablo Lastras have joined him, and it's Bohem that has set the pace up this hill as he attempts to do something and create a little bit of glory for himself in the Giro d'Italia. The 25-year-old Italian, as a bunch of riders had extricated themselves from the peloton, but they've been dragged back in. Ermetti from the original break. So Jairo Ermetti from the original breakaway of 7 riders realises that the peloton is coming up behind him, gives a little wave to the camera. It's been a great and brave effort from him. Meanwhile, 3 of his breakaway companions continue to do great work out front, and it's the Vini Fantini team that have decided to take up the chase. They had 3 riders in that little chase group. And the hammer's gone down early on this hill. It's not going to be easy for the riders that are struggling, and this could well create a little bit of excitement amongst the GC contenders. They're just watching and following in the wheels, with the Maya Rosa of Vincenzo Nibali safely ensconced in there. We saw Cadel Evans well to the fore as well. Mark Cavendish is surviving well towards the front of the bunch and still able to go around riders. This has got to be a good sign for his ability to get to the finish with the lead group and perhaps sprint it out for a second successive stage win. Meanwhile, at the back of the peloton, the riders that are suffering even more now. Bohem continues to set the pace. Pablo Lastras of the Movistar team continues to sit in his wheel, and in turn Lars Bach is sitting in his wheel. So 2 Giro stage winners are being led by the much younger man, Nicola Bohem, setting a great pace. And now, well, almost 40 seconds to the good. Will they be able to hang on over the top? And you would imagine for these 3 riders, well, certainly for Lastras and Bach, they're probably wondering whether a chase group is going to come up that they could perhaps latch onto.
Yes, it's an interesting one. We did see there when that group of Garzelli and there was a number of riders from Katusha, also from Vini Fantini. There was a lot of riders represented, and it was the team of the man we have out in front, Pablo Lastras, was pushing on. They closed it down, so I'd not be surprised if they try and attack once again and try and get some of the riders out of the front of the bunch, because they seem to be very active for some reason. But we can see here in the rear of the peloton, riders in difficulty hanging in here, and if it continues at this pace, I think the peloton will just really lose a lot of riders by the rear door.
Lots of them are going out the back. Mark Cavendish, though, is safely ensconced. That mightn't be the right word, ensconced. He's hanging on, and hanging on well at the moment, showing lots of motivation and working hard. The summit of this climb, according to the road book, comes with 36.8 kilometres to go. So they've still got about 4.5 kilometres of hard slogging. Lastras and Bach, both stage winners in this race. Lastras took his victory back in 2001. Bach took his victory in 2012, 1 year ago. Nicola Bohem has nothing like that on his CV, but showing plenty of ambition. But the bunch now within the wide shot from the helicopter. And it's a hectic pace that's been set, and it's the Vini Fantini team that are setting it. They did have a representative in that group of 7 riders out front for much of the day, Rafael Andreato, but those riders are on the way back. They've pretty much all been mopped up at this stage. And the Vini Fantini team yet to come up with the big result in this race. Sant'Ambrogio, of course, is their big GC man, sitting 6th overall, 2 minutes and 55 seconds back. And many people's outside bet, at least for a podium finish. So Sant'Ambrogio, all the team not totally concerned with his GC ambitions, which is interesting. Danilo De Luca, one of those riders that we've seen on the attack so much in this race already. And there are his teammates on the front. Nicolas Boham still managing to drag these three riders. 35 seconds up front to the good, and Boham slogging it out. Oh, and riders in all sorts of pain. Some riders choosing big gears, other riders trying to twiddle up there. And you can be sure for plenty of riders at the back of this group, none of the gears on their bike is the right one right now. That bunch is quite a bit smaller than it was starting out at Busseto today. Already quite a few riders have been shelled on this hill. This is the scene on the front of the peloton as Vinny Fantini set the pace. Androni Giocattoli maintain a watching brief. It's the lesser lights, the invitation squads from Italy that are taking it up and providing us with the entertainment. Astana and BMC, the teams of Vincenzo Nibali and Cadel Evans, first and second at overall classification, are sitting in behind and just watching it all happen. At the back of the peloton, David Miller is struggling for Garmin Sharp, so too Marco Canola, Bardiani Valvoli, his teammate, right at the front, and he's right at the back. Oliveira for Radio Shack 2. And Voikelen for Vacan Soleil. Still Nicolas Boham rides on the front. 40 kilometers to go, so about 25 miles for these riders. This the only classified climb, but as I said, there are several little lumps and bumps on the way, and the final effort happens with just under 7 kilometers to go, and it's a few kilometers as well, so it's going to be an arduous one too. Mark Cavendish still in there, as indeed are several of the other serious sprinter contenders. And that just shows you how narrow this advantage is as the peloton makes its way under the 40 kilometre to go banner, with Bardiani Valvoli still out front and Vinny Fantini setting the pace on the front of the peloton. And it's the lesser lights, the smaller Italian teams, that are showing the most ambition at the moment, Sean.
Yes, it certainly is. They're the ones who are, keeping the pace real high. Gazzelli, of course, going the attack earlier on, but they want to keep this one, lit, as they say, and it's causing a lot of problems back in the peloton for the riders who are, difficulty recovering. They're tired and they're losing contact here, and they're still not getting rid of the maybe the riders they would like to the sprinters, because we can see Rogas here with the Spanish national colours there. He's up there, although he is pretty good on this sort of climb, but maybe some of the better climbers wanting to get him into difficulty, but I don't understand the reason why, because when you look at Vinny Fantini for the sprint itself, they haven't a great sprinter, but I suppose they think if we get rid of the sprinters, then we can try something in the final, or maybe they just want to get this pace really going, get it active, and from here on, when we get over the climb 36 kilometers to finish, it could be aggressive racing, get some of the riders into another breakaway.
Well, why not try attacking now rather than actually just setting the pace on the front?
Well, that is a surprising one. You'd be expecting to go in the attack with maybe two riders together and take some other riders with them, but they're just setting the pace here, and they're going to carry a lot of riders over the top of the climb, and then it's always difficult to get into the breakaway way. If you can get away on the climb with 3 or 6 riders, well then you can have some chance of pulling an advantage.
Well, look at how well Mark Cavendish is riding. He's well to the fore in this bunch, and he's seems to be, I won't say comfortably, but he seems to be able to control his pace and ride around riders without too much difficulty. Movistar moving to the front. We got a quick shot of Luka Mezgec, of course, who was third in yesterday's stage. Mezgec has crashed spectacularly, of course, on the day that John Degenkolb took the victory, and then came up with top 3 finish yesterday, but well, he's definitely struggling at the back, but hanging on grimly in there as they come towards the top of this classified climb. So we're getting up there, but the 3 leaders still hanging on out front. Welcome back, stage 13 of Giro d'Italia, and it's hotting up nicely as they race through the vineyards of Langay towards Cherasco on the longest stage of the race. Mark Cavendish looking, well, I would venture to suggest as comfortable as is possible for him to look on a climb, and clearly he's just getting better and better as this race goes on, having taken the 100th victory of his professional career in yesterday's stage, and he'd like to make it 101 in the streets of Cherasco for the first time in a long time. Nicolas Bohème looks behind himself as he comes over the line to take the points at the top of Trécumé. Solid ride being done by him, and Perazzi is aware that there's a possibility of a couple of points on offer, and he goes to the front and is controlled by Cannondale, but is it one of the Bardiani riders? But Perazzi manages to get a couple of points extra towards his mountains classification, and that'll bring him up to 48. Actually, might be one or two extra points, but anyway, it's definitely extended his advantage over Jackson Rodriguez. And as I said, he needs every point that he can get, because the big guns are going to come out firing in the Alps tomorrow and Sunday. So now Androni Giocattoli go to the front. What can they do about closing the gap? And riders off the back, feeling the pinch. Three riders out front, still hanging on grimly, but for how much longer is the question. So Nicolas Bohème takes the top points at the top of Trécumé, ahead of Lars Bach and Pablo Lastras. Not that it was contested. Bohème had done all the work on the hill, and no question but that he was going to take those points, and they're still hanging on out front. But now the advantage down to just over 20 seconds, and it's a big group of riders coming up behind. When will the attacks come, the serious attacks come from the peloton? They'll head down the descent, but there are a couple of other little hills for them to contend with, as Cannondale go to the front to contain the pace, set the pace in the Maglia Rosa group. Blanco there too, Lampre Merida, and Perazzi from the front of the bunch has made his way right to the back within moments. Amazing he was able to do it that quick. Lars Bach now puts his considerable weight into the ride. It's Bohème that set the pace on the hill, but now the three riders riding as one. Lastras comes to the front from Movistar, and Nicolas Bohème of Bardiani Valvoli, great effort from him. Now Vinny Fantini need to get fueled up, because clearly they're up for it big time today. Didn't like that one. No, it's going to go into the pocket. Proni of Vinny Fantini gets the bottles. He'll head back up towards the front, and you can be pretty sure we're going to see more action from Vinny Fantini after setting a ferocious pace up that long drag up to Trécumé. And now the leading contenders all look around themselves. Omega Pharma Quickstep, I won't say they took a break on that hill, but they didn't set the pace. They've set the pace for much of the day, of course, on the flat roads. And the average speed just coming to that hill, 41.3 kilometers an hour for over 200 kilometers of cycling, and with plenty of wind out there. Tailwinds on occasion, but also plenty of crosswinds that they face today. .35 kilometers to go. No real expectation that these riders are going to be able to hang on, unless of course there comes an attack from the peloton, and they one or two or three of these riders manage to latch on to that. So that's probably their main ambition at the moment, Sean.
Well, I think the riders that we have front here, they were expecting maybe some of the riders to come across from the main bunch, and of course Boehm, he was the man who pushed the pace all the way up, and the others followed, and we can see they want to keep on working now, and they're in a good position there with 3 out front if there is some more action, but it's going to be difficult to get out of the bunch now because we see a lot of the quick steps coming to the front, and there will be other teams who will start preparing the running for their sprinters, and with just over 34 kilometers to go, it's not going to work out for the 3 out front. If we had that group of Garzelli and about 7 or 8 riders plus, well, that they got across, well, that would be an interesting one, but they weren't allowed either because they were chased down very quickly on the climb.
Well, there's a short climb up to Ponte sul Tanaro with about 16-17 kilometers to go, and that's going to be a little leg stretcher for the sprinters, you can be sure about that. And then there's another little drag that comes with just about 6-7 kilometers to the line up to Narzoli. So there's still plenty of tests for the riders. They get a little breather on this descent, cause them a little anxiety of course, but the legs will get a bit of a rest. And it's been a long day in the saddle, and there's an indication as riders attempt to stretch out those muscles, ease the back as best they can, all the while maintaining concentration. Got an interesting statistic from @Saddleblaze. Rigoberto Urán is the only rider in the top 50 to have won a stage so far in Giro d'Italia. That's a fascinating stat, I have to say, and a surprise at this point, coming in stage 13. Opportunities though for Vincenzo Nibali and co to right that wrong, if that be a wrong, in the next couple of stages to come. What about today though? Will it be one for the sprinters, or will it be one for some of the fast moving lesser lights? So Mark Cavendish's squad go to the front. Cavendish is not far from the front either. Looks like he's on a good day, Sean.
Yes, looking very comfortable on that climb, very much to the front of the bunch, and never seemed to be in difficulty. The moment you would see that when he starts to slip back through the peloton, but really staying in the top 25-30 riders all the time there and getting up that climb real well. And he's motivated for that today. They've made the calculation within the team, percentage of the climb, the distance of the climb, and it's looking good. And he's going to be in a real good position again because he has held on to a lot of teammates, and that's the important thing here for the final. Lastras on the front, or is he on the back? Has he let a bit of a gap go to the two riders, Nicolas Boehm and Lars Bak? He's got the motorbike for company. No, I think he's out front here at the moment. He's in the pointy end, Pablo Lastras. Setting a terrific tempo, but only 20 seconds advantage for these three riders. Quick happy birthday to the two riders who'll be getting a little bit of cake at the end of this stage. Fredrik Kesiakov is now 33 years of age, man from Astana, part of the Vincenzo Nibali backroom team, you might say. Won the Tour of Austria in 2011. Also Sonny Colbrelli, who we saw so much of yesterday, suffering in the rain. From Bardiani Valvoli, is 23 today and has already done almost 8,000 kilometers of racing this year, so he's showing wonderful endurance for a man so young. Second in Tour of Limburg this year. And Sonny Colbrelli of the Bardiani Valvoli team will be watching with interest to see how his teammate up front, Nicolas Boehm, does. Will he manage to hold on to his advantage for a whole lot longer? And 30 kilometers to go, as we see. Advantage 22 seconds at the moment, and the other two riders making their way back to Pablo Lastras, and it's going to be an impossible task for 3 breakaway men. Will they start working now together again and just try and hold out as long as possible, or will they just knock off here and allow it to be pulled back by the peloton? It looked like at the beginning of the climb it was all over for 7 breakaway. They seemed to have come to the conclusion that they weren't going to go much further. But Nicola Boehm from the Valdiari team, he was the one that climb who set a real strong pace, and the other 2 just followed him. We can see here the damage is causing in the peloton. It's lined out here, and riders losing contact. A group of 5 or 6 riders here, just a little bit off the rear of the peloton. And of course on the climb we see, as they came over the summit, there was riders just coming over in 1s and 2s, minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and I reckon there were some riders maybe 5-6 minutes down at the top of that small climb of the day.
Well, unconfirmed reports that Orica Green Edge's Matthew Harley-Goss got dropped on that climb, which begs the question, who's their go-to guy? Well, in yesterday's sprint finish, Brett Lancaster finished well up. So clearly they've got a rider with fresh legs and strong legs and fast legs. So Brett Lancaster could well be the man that they're trying to set it up for. And they're watching as Amiga Pharma Quickstep set the pace up front and close down these attackers. So Lampre Merida are represented on the back of the peloton. Is it Pozzato, perhaps?
Yes.
Yeah, Pippo Pozzato suffering in the heat. Be delighted there is a little bit of heat, mind you, after all the rain they've faced in the last few days, indeed throughout the Giro so far. Cannondale squad, massed ranks. Do they have Elia Viviani in there? Mark Cavendish manages a smile, so with 27 kilometres left, he's obviously very, very relaxed. Already a massively successful Giro d'Italia for him, with 3 stage victories. And he hasn't stopped counting them yet, I don't think. The instructions coming up from the team car. Now these riders off the back and struggling. Ben Gastower. Is that Perazzi? Perazzi, what has he done? He led the peloton over the climb, went straight to the back, and now finds himself on the back and off the back as Siutsu, surprisingly, struggling a little bit, or are they just working their way back up?
I think Siutsu was in difficulty on the climb there. We could see him, he was very much the rear, and Cataldo also, but
well, that begs the question, is there a bug going through the team, or?
Well, Perazzi is the one which was, very much to the fore there. He got actually 1 point in the mountain classification, and then he finds himself, out the rear of the peloton. How can he manage that?
Off the front or off the back? He doesn't like being in the peloton, that's just it, isn't it? Pozzato getting the food in. Last gel of the day before things get really hectic. And now the attack's coming off the front. Sella. Oh, forget that. Attack's coming off the back. Sella manages to make his way up to this group. Desperately trying to grind their way back onto the back of the group. Looks like they're going to make it, but worrying moments for these riders. And Perazzi caught out a little bit. Meanwhile, these 3 riders are still out there. 22 seconds to the good. Pablo Lastras, Lars Bach and Nicola Boehm give them a big cheer. They're doing great work on stage 13 of Giro d'Italia. Pozzato, you might have thought, is someone who might be able to launch something late on, but not from the back of the bunch. So some people had suggested that he might have been one to watch today.
Well, I don't think he's been going well in the last number of days. We've seen him, he is struggling, and to be in the place where he is at the moment, it's normally for Pozzato, he should be up there on the front end of the peloton and just, conserving energy and waiting for the final. But we see that, getting back into the peloton, and that position he's in, and not looking good for him.
What a superb job being done by these riders. They've knocked it off a little bit in the peloton. We see Cadel Evans of the BMC team staying out of trouble up front. as the peloton hit the final 25 kilometres. And the pattern is resumed at the front as Omega Pharma Quickstep take it up. So where's the next bit of activity going to come from? Will they wait until that next climb? Elia Viviani is still in there, and Cannondale looking after him, so that's good news for Viviani. Marked absent yesterday, but neither Goss nor Viviani, who you might have expected to put it up to Mark Cavendish, were able to do anything about it. Nasser Bouhanni, of course, has departed the race, and Cavendish just looks stronger and stronger. Trentin did superb work for Cavendish yesterday in the rain, slugging it out front for so long.
And interesting here, we don't see Gert Stegmans with Mark Cavendish. I'm concerned that he did not make it here, unless he's a bit further back in the peloton, but normally, you know, he always stays close to Mark Cavendish for the final, but he could be just a little bit further back in the peloton. We'd see him later, but he is an important man, as we have seen in the sprints all of this Giro. He's the final lead out for Mark Cavendish, and if he's not there today, well then it will, you know, change the lead out train for Omega Quickstep.
We survey the scene over Piedmont. The terraced steps up to these well, extraordinary examples of architecture. And the vineyards, no doubt, will be welcoming the little bit of sunshine over the grapes and indeed over the riders. As they work their way through the final 22 kilometres of this stage 13. Still three riders out front. They are Nicola Boem of Bardiani Valvoli, Pablo Lastras of Movistar, and Lars Bach of Lotto Belisol. The jaws set for Cadel Evans. He focuses on the job in hand, which is to maintain position at the front, as close to the front as possible, while using the minimum amount of energy, and at the same time reducing stress and anxiety to the lowest possible levels. Interesting stat from Omega Pharma Quickstep are the only team in the race that have all their riders on Twitter. Not that they have time to do any tweeting right now. Posado's still at the back. He's not, well, surely not going to be a factor today. His ambitions are somewhat reduced to just surviving in this peloton. Pozzovivo, the diminutive figure, towards the tail of the peloton as well. He won't be enjoying this pace. And the peloton have given these riders a little while longer, and they've taken it. So Boem was right to chase as he did. Got rid of the dead wood in that group. Lastras and Bach have been able to contribute on the descent and on the flat road, and now they've extended their advantage to 3/4 of a minute. And they'll have a little while longer out front, although it's surely going to be impossible for them to last all the way to Cherasco. Well, I said that so often yesterday, and the break almost made it. They almost cut out Omega Pharma Quickstep, but today they've been well, a little bit more vigilant, and they've kept the rope a little bit shorter. A little danger moment for Perazzi has ended, so the worry for him is over. Roberto Ferrari perhaps as a sprint option for Lampre Merida. Well, not from back there, you won't. Ferrari, who really made a name for himself in the Giro last year in more ways than one. Big mates with Mark Cavendish. Ferrari's been, well, conspicuous by his absence from the gallops we've had so far. "20 kilometers to go, just over 12 miles for Pablo Lastras, Lars Bak and Nicola Boem. Lastras, 37 years of age, has won stages of all 3 Grand Tours. Took his Giro stage win, as I said, in 2001. Also took a stage win in the Tour de France in 2003, and his most recent one was the Vuelta. I'd have expected that to be the first one he'd get, but no, 2011. And I did see a stat that he's been with the same team throughout his career, and that's since the late 90s. He's been with the same team for a long, long time. 1997, I think it was. Won general classification of the Vuelta Andalucia in 2008. He's an old stager. He knows how to get the maximum out of himself and the maximum out of a break, and he's clearly got good legs and doing a good job out front, as indeed are his breakaway companions Lars Bak and Nicola Boem. Oh, one of the Astana riders is doing a little bit of cyclocrossing. Nice skills demonstrated, but little worrying moment. He'll say it was no problem at all. Totally in control. So Omega Pharma Quick Step, I won't say they've knocked it off, but turned the tap a little bit down, and no other team has decided to take it up. If you were Director Sportive of one of the other teams, Sean, what would you be thinking now? Would you just leave it up to them, or is there any way they could perhaps shake it up a little bit?
Well, it's difficult to shake it up here, and you know, the way they've been racing for a long number of kilometres, I think everybody is happy with a little bit of downtime here, a little bit of recovery time, and you know, to go in the attack when there's a number of riders riding on the front, it's so difficult to get out of the peloton. Out front, they are, you know, putting up a great performance again, but with Lastras up there and Lars Boem, you know, they're 2 real powerhouses, and Nicola Boem, he's really riding well, and if they could have held on to another number of the riders, like of Daniel Honda, for example, in this group out front, well, then they would be, you know, a difficult number of riders to get back. If they had 6 riders, you know, for example, out front at this moment, well, then it would be a bit more difficult situation for Omega Pharma Quickstep. But at the moment, I think they're just allowing them to hang out there. But these guys, you know, they can really put in a very, very strong final 15 kilometres, and we might see them again like yesterday. It looked like they could be, you know, pulled back at any moment, but it wasn't the case. And it's difficult to make the calculation. Are they just allowed to hang out there, or are they just, you know, keeping on riding close to 100% back in the peloton and hoping the 3 riders out front that have been out a long time all day, that they will really just start to suffer in the final kilometres?
Lars Bak of Lotto Belisol, Pablo Lastras of the Movistar squad, and Nicola Boem of Bardiani Valvole. And Boem's shoulders are beginning to rock a little bit, still going through. Pain etched on his face though, and you get the sense that of the 3, he could well be the one that's suffering the most. How much longer can these riders hang on out front? 17 kilometers to go, and they've hit the next little ramp for them. They've 2 more ramps. This is the tougher of the 2 by miles. It's not a classified climb, but you can be sure, with well over 200 kilometers in their legs, that they'll be feeling this big time.
And you can already see it here. They're just you know, really suffering on this one, and the pace has dropped off very, very quickly. The peloton here will just really go fast, and the attacks, that's going to be their problem.
So no surprise that Vini Fantini are active at the front. The attacks coming as we've expected, and still 40 seconds to the group up front, but it's Proni. Well, he looks around, he's got a gap. What happened there? Did
think his team orders.
Oh, maybe he got the call. Got the call from behind. You're not Danilo De Luca, perhaps. Yeah.
Because he turned off the gas real sudden.
What extraordinary scene there. Peroni attacks, gets a decent gap. Peloton content to watch, but well behind. The decision from Skinto is that you're not the man, or this is perhaps not the moment. Maybe they need to have the gap a little bit closer. 22 seconds now to the riders up front.
Yes, and he's just losing contact there with the front end of the peloton, so it looks like that maybe just that little attack was the final throw.
So a little explosion of the legs, has a little look behind. What's he saying, you know? I was expecting to have about 200 yards and I've only got 50. See, clearly Vinny Fantini are up for it today. They want to do something. As I said, they've got Sant'Ambrogio well placed overall. 2 minutes and 55 seconds down on the race leader. Vincenzo Nibali. 3 riders out front, little dots in the distance, but the fact that they will be in sight of the peloton very shortly tells you that surely they haven't got too much longer out front. They hit a particularly steep ramp and almost instantly their gap came down, and there you go, 25 seconds to the 3 riders out front, and so many of the bunch now out of the saddle, and that tells you that they just hit that little ramp. Trying to stay in the gear. Lastres looking not too bad. Bohème now, who set the pace on the last hill, is just clinging on to the wheels of Lastres and back. Still going up though. Now the vineyards producing that sumptuous Barolo wine. Not that the riders have any. Oh, and it looks as if Perazzi's in trouble again, so clearly not on a good day. Stefano Perazzi, leader of the mountains classification. Well, on this unclassified hill, looks as if it's all up for him. So now Bach has had a little dig. Bohème has been left. And Bohème it was that was struggling the most of the 3. Lars Bach is on the front of the race. Pablo Lastres has to be alive to the danger. And grinding big gears. Vincenzo Nibali looks very, very relaxed indeed. This is taking very little out of him in contrast to so many of the riders around him, as we see Bardiani Valvoli on the attack. They get the word that Bohème has finished. It's Bongiorno. Franco Bongiorno that races clear of the peloton, has a little look, and that's the indication that he has been given a gap. He gets on the blower to say, well, can I attack? Am I allowed? In his first year and on the attack in Giro d'Italia. Francesco Bongiorno. Clear of the peloton, but 22 seconds to close down, or maybe a little bit less than that. And he's got someone for company. Who's that? One of the Vacan Soleil riders. They've been, well, they haven't been as active in the last couple of days. And that's just what he needs, really. If he's got any chance of making it clear, it could well be just what... now there's... Nicolas Bohème, his day is done, his legs are gone completely, and doesn't even contemplate the thought of trying to join his teammate Bongiorno.
Frederic Verschullen from the Vacan Soleil team. And Vinny Fantini.
So no surprise, here comes Vinny Fantini. It's 2 riders. Is that Rabottini?
Difficult from here, but it seems to be the race between the two smaller Italian teams. Seems to be a bit of a ding-dong here between them.
Yeah, whatever Bardiani Valvoli can do, Vinny Fantini can do better. At least that's what they think at the moment. Now Lastres on the attack, or is he just trying to stay with Lars Bach? No, he's managed to get a few bike lengths advantage over Lars Bach, who grimaces, hangs on to that big gear, and grinds his way in the wake of Pablo Lastres. Lastres strikes out for glory. Realises that his companion is not really of any help to him at this point. It's Frederick Vuchlin of the Vacansoleil team that has joined with Bongiorno of Bardiani Valvoli, where the Vinny Fantinis has a little look over his shoulder, and here they come, and as one of the Movistar riders joins them. Attacks coming hot and heavy at the front of the peloton on stage 13. Astana go to the front to make sure they keep the race leader in good shape. Lastros too has a little look behind, so plenty of opportunity to form little alliances. And Euskaltel as well, who've had an up and down race so far. Mazanza gets into that one. Katusha, they've had a super race. So it's Lastras that hits the 15 kilometers to go mark. And we got two Vinny Fantinis in here. Bardiani Valvoni are represented. Movistar have another rider up there. Vuchlin is struggling at the back for Vacansoleil. And another one of the Italian squads goes for it. And again, Movistar are right there. But there's riders from the front of the peloton that they were actually just chasing across to, and now they've got to try and find a way around them. And one of the BMC riders, well, I don't think it was Evans, no. Mark Cavendish doing well, isn't he? He's right up there. And Amiga Pharma Quickstep playing a watching brief here, just closing gaps. And Cavendish seems to have great legs and getting over these without too much difficulty at all.
And the Amiga Pharma Quickstep, Gianluca Brambilla, and keeping the pace high, just continuing on at the same rhythm, and leaving the Royals attack just take 10-15 metres, but continuing on. And Cavendish looking so comfortable here. It's impressive on the front end of the bunch with this difficult terrain, the climb we had earlier. But here again we can see it drags on for a long time. We can see the way it's causing problems for a lot of riders here, but Omega Pharma controlling the situation real well.
Yeah, they're going to have to, because this is a decent sized group of riders out front. Katusha, Bardiani, Valvoli, Vinny Fantini, Movistar, and Euskaltel in there. Lotto Belisol too. Lastras on his own is going to be joined by these riders very shortly, but the question is, will those riders still be able to maintain the advantage over the Amiga Pharma Quickstep led peloton? And the peloton isn't too far behind at all. Vincenzo Nibali well to the fore in his Maglia Rosa and the sky blue shorts of Astana. Lastras takes a little breather, and he's got a teammate for company. What's he saying? This is the plan. So what's the plan? We ride.
It's an interesting one, because we have seen the team of Movistar, very active out front with Lastras, but then they were on the climb, they were starting to push on the pace a lot, so difficult to know exactly what the plan is here. Normally in this group now they should try and push on with two men out front, but I think Lastras is also at the end of his strengths today.
Well, it's funny, he goes to the front there, so maybe he thinks, well, I'm nearly cooked, I'll just drill it for one last big turn and then try and set you up for the big push. He took immediate responsibility. The 37-year-old, there's very little you could teach him about bike racing at this point. And he immediately had it worked out, had the quick conversation. Danilo Hondo at the back was in the break for so long, he's doing well to hang on.
And the Vinny Fantini, it looks like Rabotini is up there, so he is he's doing a good job also. And it's the team Vinny Fantini, as we mentioned, the smaller teams has really opened up this race, and they're the ones who was attacking. And of course they know that if they allow just to go on to the finish with the way Omega Pharma Quickstep control, and there's nothing they can do. And this is a real good move here now with about what, 3, 6, 9 riders.
So what happens back in the bunch? Do they just look at Omega Pharma Quickstep and say, well, you've been doing it all day, you better keep on doing it?
Well, yes, I think Omega Pharma Quickstep will be, you know, the ones who they'll be looked at. Will there be other teams who want to take it up? That is going to be the interesting one. But with this 9-man group, it's a big group with 11.5 kilometres to go, and there's a lot of fresh guys that are coming out of the group here, and that's going to be the difficult one for Omega Pharma Quickstep. Is there other teams going to be, you know, get involved? They will need them, because if they really work well together, these 9 guys, it could be a difficult one to pull back in.
4 riders for Omega Pharma Quickstep on the front. The question is, if they manage to close this down, what sort of legs will they have, and what helpers will Mark Cavendish have for the sprint at the end? So even if they manage to close it down, it could well be a complicated one for Mark Cavendish towards the tail of affairs. Zandio got a side of Sitsu got back in, of course, and he had Rigoberto Uran. We got shots of that a little earlier. This the scene at the back of the peloton. These riders less concerned with what's going on up front, as long as they can just manage to stay in there. Nine riders out front. Pablo Lastras, as he has been for so much of the day, is setting the pace on the front. Very confident on the descent, as we saw off the last hill, but it's a tiny advantage. And a superb job being done by Omega Pharma Quickstep. Can't be more than 10 seconds between these riders, and they're some of them struggling to hold the wheel. There are 200 riders in that peloton. Inside the final 10 kilometres of the 13th stage of the Giro d'Italia of 2013. They're on the way to Cherasco, as we see Roberto Ferrari has done for the day, so he's not going to be a challenge to Mark Cavendish in the sprint. Those big thighs perfect on a flat road, but a little bit of extra weight to carry up a hill. Oscar Gatto up front, and Lastras is organising things. He's the veteran, making all the decisions. So Asanza of Euskaltel goes to the front. And still it's 3-4 riders from Omega Pharma Quickstep that set the pace. A teammate joins them up front. But what legs have they got left for the gallop in terms of setting it up? And they're looking behind them in this group, and that can't be a good sign. Coming to the final 5 miles, 8.7 kilometres to go. There's one little ramp to be negotiated within the next couple of kilometres. Bongiorno up front, Caruso, Herrada, Asanza, Vushlin's in there, Rabatini has made it, and Gatto. Now they're starting to get organised as they hit the flat road. And Rabatini goes to the front, gives a little flick, and Pablo Lastras has done manful work so far. Any chance they can hang on, Sean?
Well, it will be an interesting one as we get to the flatter run in. It will be I think the deciding point on the descent, of course. You know, if a rider is suffering, and if the Omega Pharma riders are suffering a bit, you can continue on the descent if you take a bit of risk. And but when it starts to kick up again, but we can see here the advantage is still about the same. They're holding on, you know, at the same advantage. It's probably about 9 or 10 seconds maximum. And if they can get organised here in front, and we can see Lastras is trying to get people organised there, you know, pushing other people on for a little bit on the front to keep them out on the front a bit longer. If they can work together, you know, they could cause a problem here. But I think in the next 2 or 3 kilometres we will see if they're capable of holding off as we go to 7.5 kilometres to the finish.
Now the road starts to ramp up again, and this is where some serious decisions will be made. Oscar Gatto on the front for Vinny Fantini, setting a hectic pace. Buongiorno of Bardiani Valvoli in his wheel and hanging on grimly. Meanwhile, Amiga Pharma Quickstep now have hit that ramp. And if you were to try and analyse the pace they're going at this distance, you'd say that Amiga Pharma Quickstep aren't going as well. But now you get a sight, and it ramps up a little bit more. And here come the attacks. Is that Caruso, Gianpaolo Caruso from the Katusha squad? And the peloton crowding across the road behind. Well aware of the distance and working out exactly what it's going to take to get across it and when they need to make that push to do it. And it was Team Saxo Tinkoff that had gone to the front. Yevgeny Petrov, we saw in the wars a little bit earlier. Petrov on the front. So perhaps it is that Daniele Benatti is feeling confident today and feels like he could put it up to Mark Cavendish. Asanza Vuskaltel on the front and feeling the pain. Androni have missed it. Vacancelet and Cannondale attempt to control. That's Rubiano. Asanza making them all suffer. Buongiorno able to cover it. And they're all looking behind, and it's all up for them. Here comes the attack from Caruso, another one. Gianpaolo Caruso of the Katusha squad strikes out for Gloria Sanza, tries to cover it, but a little bit late getting on the pedals. And as the gradient eases a little, Gianpaolo Caruso with a number of bike lengths advantage, but it groups coming up and in ones and twos from behind.
And they're just attacking each other, and no real organisation here where they, as we can see...
oh, look at that. Look at who's right at the front and jogging along as if he was just out for a summer bike ride. It's the race leader, Vincenzo Nibali.
And in Chelsea we see there who's the one who tried to move across, and of course he's not allowing him because at 4:05 in general classification. But out front in that 9-man group, they're they're just attacking each other, and with the slim advantage they have at the moment, that's not going to work. They have to really kind of pull together.
Gianpaolo Caruso, pain etched on his face. He's over the final big hill of the day, coming down to the 5 kilometers to go point. Kangert picks up Vincenzo Nibali at the front, but still these riders out front creating questions for Amiga Pharma Quickstep, the team to which all the other squads will be looking at this point. Well, you take us home. Can you close it down? That's the big question for them. Meanwhile, Caruso's got a decent advantage indeed. He really has powered away from this group. They weren't organised at all, and Caruso, well, could they be on for another stage win? It's his 5th time in the Giro d'Italia. Under the 5 kilometers to go banner in stage 13 of Giro d'Italia, Gianpaolo Caruso of the Katusha squad, as the other riders look around themselves and realise that it's all up for them. They're surely finished for the day. The peloton closed them down with the Maglia Rosa well to the fore in 3rd position, and it's Astana that have decided to control the pace. At what time do the sprinters teams go back to the front? You see Mark Cavendish nicely ensconced there and clearly very confident. Looked like Cannondale were about to take it up on the front with Elia Viviani, their man. Meanwhile, Gianpaolo Caruso, a 5-kilometre pursuit for him as he settles into the pain. And a couple of Cannondales with a gap there. Katusha covering that one just in case it was a counter, but I think it was more about setting a pace on the front to try and drag Viviani into contention.
We can see Mark Cavendish very much to the fore, but no teammates around him at the moment. I think they had difficulty on that last climb there to stay in contact, and he's just going to hover around the front. Hopefully they will, some of the teammates get back in if they're not too far off, but it looks like that he's lost quite a number of them.
Is that De Luca? De Luca has tried his luck off the front. Will he be able to close down Caruso, and more importantly, will he be able to hold off the peloton? Well, he's shown lots and lots of ambition so far in this year's Giro d'Italia, but De Luca hasn't managed to come up with the stage victory for Vinnie Fantini. It's never over till it's over, and he's pushing hard, as indeed is Gianpaolo Caruso, holding on to that. It's now 14 seconds advantage, lost a second. And this has often been the pattern this year. Mark Cavendish, the first man to reach 10 wins on the UCI Pro Tour in 2013. Peter Sagan's on 9, one or two others on 9 as well, but Cavendish has 10 wins, and the pattern has often been that Mega Pharma Quickstep would set the pace, and then in the final 5 kilometres some of the other teams would take it up, but then they try and get organised again with 1 or 2 riders and then deliver them to the line. It's worked perfectly, it worked perfectly yesterday and indeed on stage 6. And of course Cavendish himself managed to ferret out the win on stage 1 when Stegemans hit his little bit of a difficulty with mechanical issues in the last few hundred metres. So Caruso in a world of pain right now, but racing towards glory in the Giro d'Italia. Will he be able to hang on? It would appear to be very difficult indeed. That's a decent sized group behind, and surely they have the firepower to close him down. Inside the final 2 kilometres, it's more or less a straight run. Danilo De Luca, his attack came to naught, and Caruso is being dragged back with every passing metre. A wonderful effort for the Katusha man, but he's called to account inside the final 1500 metres of this, the longest stage of the race. Cannondale on the front. Elia Viviani is in there. Orica Greenedge also go to the front. Now, is it for Matthew Harley-Goss or is it for Brett Lancaster? And that's the final bit of road furniture, that roundabout. Orica Greenedge take it up.
Peter Weaning taking it up very fast. We can see there as they went through that little roundabout, taking a little advantage on with 2 or 3 other riders.
Katusha there too. Could it be that Luca Paolini believes that he's got a decent sprint at the end of a long hard day? Mark Cavendish sitting in the top 15 positions as we come towards the end game of this stage 13. Paolini drops out of contention. Cannondale on the front, they're going to take it up in the closing stages. Elia Viviani nicely placed, but so too is Mark Cavendish a few places further back. He's looking at time at Daniele Benatti is in there for the Saxo Tinkoff team. Have Cannondale gone too early? Here comes Cavendish on the outside in the red jersey of the leader of the points competition. He's lit the afterburners, got the jump on them. Cannondale let it out, but it looks like he's going to be able to hang on. Will it be a 4th victory of the race, a 2nd in succession? Cavendish gets his arm up, but did he leave it late? Because, well, on the outside, right beside him, could that conceivably have been Nizzolo? Well, Cavendish got the arm up and doesn't seem concerned. So he's the man that gets the victory. It was a much closer run thing, but he timed his attack at the end absolutely perfectly, and it's a 4th victory in this year's Giro d'Italia for Mark Cavendish. There's the pain, but that'll turn to smiles very shortly. It's a 14th victory in the Giro d'Italia in total for him. An 11th victory in the World Tour for 2013, but what a fantastic performance from Mark Cavendish. Let's get it from the overhead. Orica green edge, attempt to keep it fast going into the final kilometre. Then the Cannondales trying to set it up for Elia Viviani. Mark Cavendish, you see in position here. Looks like he could get crowded out by one of the AG2Rs. Is it Apollonia? Oh, and he just has to find his way out and manages that without too much difficulty. Mark Cavendish then
just touching Duque there from the Columbia team.
Yeah.
And look where Mark Cavendish is at the moment, 3, 6, 7 back. Like he's 6, 7 bike lengths off, and here he takes up the sprint, and amazing when he just takes it up, he comes by everybody so rapidly.
And the trick is to get the jump. If you can get the jump on Mark Cavendish, you might have some chance. And absolutely no doubt about it. Got the arm in the air, but well, there was no way for anyone else to get on terms. Mark Cavendish takes a gulp, gets the sugar in, and there's confirmation. It was Nizzolo of the Radio Shack squad in second place. Luka Mezgec, who got a barge from Mark Cavendish to as he was coming through, but it's Cavendish that gets the win. Brett Lancaster is well up there again for Orica Green Edge. Viviani fades to 5th. Belletti well up there for AG2R La Mondiale. Benatti doesn't have anything in the end up. Pizzato did actually get up into the top 10 after spending so much of the stage at the back, but it's Cavendish that stays out of trouble, climbs well and sprints even better. Perfect work by Cavendish all day, and as I said, Sean, he set it up with his climbing.
Yes, yeah, climbing impressively, and the team was very impressive, but ended up without a teammate, and what an exciting sprint, because when he hasn't got a teammate, I think the sprints are more exciting, because he was pushed there by Nizzolo, because taking up the sprint from a long ways off, he was in about 7th position when he took it up, and he had to make the effort to get to the front of that group, and then to hold off in the sprint. The others got close to him, but still, the fastest man in this race.
Yeah, you don't want to get in Mark Cavendish's way, as Duque of Colombia found out. He's their team sprinter. Also, Mezgec became aware of the true level of the ambition of the Manx missile, who takes a 4th victory from this year's race. But it's Vincenzo Nibali that maintains his 41-second advantage over Cadel Evans. Rigoberto Urán safely in the group, as were all the leading contenders. Beñat Inchausti in 8th position overall, tried a little bit of a late attack, but Nibali alive to the danger.